Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webcast. We're excited to have you on. Some quick housekeeping items before we go ahead and get started. This webinar is recorded, and we'll share the recording with you all on our blog as well as over email to everyone who registered. We're going to save questions to the end of the webcast, but please feel free to type them in the Q&A. It's located at the bottom of your webcast console. And then if you haven't done so already, be sure to take the poll, as well as checking out our resources that we've provided. Those are also located at the bottom of your webcast console. And then a final point here. Sometimes On24, our webcast platform, is a bit delayed when changing slides. So I'm going to do my best to pause between slides to make sure we're all on the same page. If you don't see the slide when I start talking again, give it another moment, and then if you still don't see the slide, definitely comment in so we can get that course corrected. All right, let's go ahead and jump in with today's webcast. So my name is Amara. I'm a product marketer at GitLab, and today I'll be presenting with Job, our VP of Product. This is a really exciting release webcast for us. Some of you have already said that this was an epic release for GitLab, and the truth is we really couldn't agree more. We're super excited about the release news that we're going to share on our webcast today, but one of the things that I'm personally excited about is the fact that this was one of the first times that we really started to showcase our vision more prominently. If you're familiar with GitLab, then you're also familiar with our open nature and our incredibly transparent culture. So you might already know that our vision has always been on our direction page. But in this release, we made a point to really include it in all of our marketing messaging to ensure that people understood how the GitLab Issue Board brings us a step closer to realizing the full vision. So I'll start the webcast today by introducing GitLab, and then I'll quickly pass it over to Job to walk through our vision, demo some key features that we shipped with GitLab 8.11, and share insights into what's coming next. And then we'll close the session with a Q&A. So it's hard to introduce GitLab without first introducing Git. Git is the leading distributed version control system that allows developers to store a local copy of their source code, propose changes to it, and then share those changes with others. Since each developer maintains a local copy, it's incredibly easy to work offline and merge changes later. Git was initially designed for distributed teams that were working on open source projects, which often meant that they were located in a number of different geographies, working across a variety of different time zones. But it's since expanded in popularity, and due to the fact that it really provides developers tools to iterate faster and collaborate more naturally. So GitLab is built on top of Git, and it's an integrated set of tools for the full software development lifecycle. Our platform includes Git repository management that acts as your single source of truth in a distributed version control workflow. It also includes code review and diff tools with tons of collaboration and workflow management features. We've built in an issue tracker with issue boards, which you'll see later in today's webcast, and we also offer a project wiki. And then to manage everything, GitLab offers permissions management so that you can easily assign user roles and determine access levels for all of your users. So most of the things in the previous slide are all things that you could arguably say you expected to see from GitLab. But as I mentioned, GitLab is an integrated set of tools for the full software development lifecycle. So we've built in a number of great features and workflow best practices right into our product. We offer a built-in continuous integration and deployment system that tightly integrates both testing and deployment into your workflow. We also offer a built-in container registry that allows you to easily store container images. So hopefully by now you're excited about GitLab and you're wondering how you can use it. There are 3 ways to use GitLab. And the first question to ask yourself is whether you're looking for a single tenant solution that you host on your own servers, or if you want a multi-tenant solution that GitLab hosts. Assuming you're in the single-tenant solution bucket, you have two options. GitLab Community Edition is our free and open source product. And GitLab Enterprise Edition is a product that is designed to really cater to large organizations. So it has a number of features that are focused around things like deeper access and permission controls, fine-grained workflow management, integration with your existing tech tool stack, as well as support. All features that we believe large development teams need. And then the final option is leveraging GitLab.com, which is our free hosted version of GitLab that actually runs our Enterprise Edition. And with that, I will pass the baton over to Job to talk through our vision, demo some exciting features in GitLab 8.11, and share what's coming next in the product.
Thanks, Amara. So let me change the slide to the next one and tell you a little bit about GitLab. So the way we think about GitLab is we want to offer you a product where you can go all the way from your ideas in the very earliest stage to actually shipping them in production and getting feedback on them. And between those two steps, there's a lot that happens. And traditionally, you have many different tools for this. And what we did with GitLab is we tried to ship in a single package this entire workflow for you so that everything you do, you can do within GitLab and while collaborating with your colleagues. Now, this is not just our goal, this is our goal to do this year. And actually, with some of the things I'll show you today, we're getting very close to that whole cycle. So we have, for instance, for the ID part, we ship Mattermost, which is a chat client, where you can talk with your colleagues, you can discuss your ideas. The next thing you would do is you would create an issue, which you can do in GitLab, where you write down your ideas and how you're going to implement them. You can plan them with the GitLab Issue Board, which I'm going to show you in a bit. And with our latest release, we integrated with coding, so you can even run a full IDE that connects straight back to GitLab. Of course, you already know you can store your code and you have all your repositories in GitLab. And with GitLab CI, you can run your tests. And we have full CD and container registry as well. Then you create, of course, a merge request, and it all leads up to you eventually deploying it and eventually reviewing it. So today, what I'm going to show you is one of our latest features that in this whole flow. I'm first going to show you the GitLab Issue Board. And next, I'm going to show you a really cool feature that I'm pretty proud of, merge conflict resolution. So I'll start by sharing my screen. I'll wait for a moment for it to buffer, and then I'll start to show you. So while this is loading, what I did here is I have a little local server where I run my own instance of GitLab, and I cloned the source code of GitLab Community Edition right here. And I created a few issues to populate the project a bit. So we have the full source code of GitLab here and some issues. You should be able to see my project right now. As you see, I mounted it under the group of GitLab, and I called it GitLab as well. It's not very inspiring, but it at least looks like a real project. So let's say that I have a few issues here. Let's have a look at the issues. I see that here I have a bunch of different issues, and traditionally what you would do is you would go into an issue and you would say, you would assign it to you, and then let's say I have to do the backend first and then the front end. What I would typically do is I would just simply add the label front end here once I'm done with it, and then remove the label backend. Now we felt that we could do better in this sense, right? And we were of course familiar with the Scrum boards and the Kanban boards, so we decided to implement something similar in GitLab. And that is GitLab Issue Board. So this is what you see when you start GitLab Issue Board for the first time. You see here lists. In this case, you have the done list, where issues that are without any of the list labels and that are closed. A backlog where I see all my issues. And then I see here a suggestion for other lists to add. In this case, I said I'm not going to use the suggestions because I already have some labels. And you'll see why in a moment. So I click never mind, I'll use my own. So each list in the GitLab Issue Board is based on a label. But we did that because that allows you to do a few interesting things. One of them is that it's very easy to assign or to change whatever in which list a certain issue appears, because all you have to do is add or remove a label. Second, it allows you to start working with this immediately. You don't have to set it up, you don't have to fill extra forms, you already have the labels. And it even gives you some cool capabilities, such as having a single issue in multiple lists. But without further ado, let me show you how it actually works. So what I want to do, our process is, I have an issue, and first we do the backend, then we do the front end, and then we do QA. And of course you can do anything you want, but in this case, I'm just going to leave it as simple as that. So I simply click on create a new list. I add the backend list, and you see immediately that the issue with the label backend is moved right here. And we remove the label here to avoid duplication. I want to create a list for front end, and I want to create a list for QA. And you see that immediately the issues that have labels that correspond to the list that I created are added in the right list. Now, this is of course very nice. But how is it useful? Well, you can of course do what you expect to do, which is moving an issue from one list to the next. And I can move it back. So let's have a look at what happens behind the scenes. So here I have this issue boards. And when I moved it from the list backend to front end, I removed the backend label and automatically added the front end. And when I moved it back, the opposite happened. So this allows you to, rather than having to edit things, to simply pick up an issue here and move it to the next list to move it to the next stage. And automatically we will add and remove labels. Now, but what if there's something, what if you start working on something, this is not enough? Well, the nice thing about this is that you can easily sort this, for instance, by a milestone. So let's say that I'm building GitLab 9.0. All I have to do is I click on the milestone, and automatically it will only show me the issues that are relevant for this specific milestone. And to give you an idea of how this looks in production, in actual use, we have a board set up for the actual development of GitLab that I have prepared here. So here you see the board of GitLab itself, so GitLab Community Edition, the real repository where we are now working on. So you see that we have a number of different lists. And to get an idea of what we were working on now, I can simply go to the milestone filter and, for instance, click on the upcoming milestone. So in this case, it would show me all the issues for the upcoming milestone, the earliest milestone. And you see here one of the cool new features we're going to ship in the future, which is cycle analytics. And so here are all the GitLab developers working. And let's say that I want to choose something to work on. All I have to do is I have to click on, for instance, unassigned. And now I can just pick up any of the issues and I can work as normal. Now, going back to my example board. Let's say that I want to start working on the bug template. So I would drag it, for instance, here to the backend. I can click on it and I can assign it to myself. And this gives me the nice occasion to show you one of the new features of GitLab, which is slash comments. So if I want to assign it to myself, I can of course go here to the top right, click assign and assign myself. But if at the same time I want to write a message, or I just want to use a different method, I can do this. I type /assign and I add myself there. And the nice part about this specific command is that it's very vast. So if you type /as and you press tab twice, you always enter this command that assigns yourself. I can even change the milestone or add any labels. In this case, I don't want to do it, but I do want to write the message. Starting to work on this. And if I press Command Enter, I can quickly submit it, and I never even have to reach for the mouse. And it automatically assigns it to me and edit my comment there. All right. So let's do this. Let's say that I want to start working on the bug template. I'm not going to show you how to edit a file because you are probably already familiar with that, and it's quite easy. So what I did is I prepared a merge request. And in this merge request, I updated the template for the bug, because you now have templates in GitLab that you can easily create and that exist in your repository. Now, to fix this issue, all I would have to do is merge this merge request. But as you see, it contains a merge conflict. And this is one of those situations that if you do merge requests very regularly, you bump into this, and now you have to go to your local editor. You have to resolve all the conflicts. And it can be quite a pain to do this. And we felt that pain as well. Especially if you have smaller conflicts, right? That is just a few lines, or where it's very obvious what it is that you want to fix, but Git cannot do it for you. So for those kind of situations, we created the ability to resolve your merge conflicts in GitLab. And all you have to do is click on Resolve these conflicts. And what I get to see is very similar to what you might see in your local editor. I see here what the exact conflict is. I see the changes that I tried to make and the changes that were made by someone else while I was working on this merge request before it was merged. And now what I can do is I simply have the choice to either accept my changes or the changes that someone else made, their changes. In this case, I like my changes better, so I'm just going to click on this one, use ours, because I want to use our changes. I can change the commit message here in the bottom, and it uses the same kind of confirmation as you would do when you do it locally. It lists the conflicts, and it says exactly what it does. And this is satisfactory to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Commit Conflict Resolution, which creates a commit on top of the branch of my merge request that actually solves the conflict. And as you can see, GitLab immediately reports that all conflicts have been resolved and it can now be merged. So that's what I'm going to do. In this case, I choose to remove the source branch because no one else is going to use it anymore. Now, if we were to go back to the issues, I could say, well, I'm happy with updating the bug template. It's now all good. So I can simply drag it to QA to check. If I'm completely satisfied with it, I can even drag it all the way to done. And if you go to the issue, you see that now it's automatically closed. So it removed all the labels that were present on the issue board, and it simply closed the issue. And now I'm done. Now to show you the last little thing, I updated the bug template. So what I can do now is when I create a new issue, I can choose a template and it will pre-fill the description with the template, where I want to use a bug, submit a feature, or just resend it. And that's it. I'm going to turn off my screen share and go back to our slides. So what I showed you was that on the issue board, you work very closely together with the issue tracker as it is. So you use the labels, and the labels are represented on the issue board as lists. And you can drag any of your issues between lists, removing the label of the list that you were just in, and adding the one of you're going to. And this is, of course, a very nice way to link these two things. So if you have been using issues before, boards will accompany that flawlessly. You can use it without any problems. And if you choose to stop using it, that's not a problem either, because all the data is still there. The issue is always the source of truth in this case. I also showed you the ability to resolve merge conflicts in the interface of GitLab. And it's very simple. GitLab simply shows you the conflict. It tells you that there is a conflict. It highlights exactly what the conflict is and which part you contributed and which part someone else contributed. And it allows you to choose and commit whatever change you prefer. Now, what is especially interesting is about what's next. And we've had a lot of requests. People saying to us, well, this issue board is really great, but I need just this one feature. Well, I can happily tell you that there's a few things that we're working on right now. One of them is the group level boards, having the ability to have a single issue board that spans multiple projects in a single group, so that you can see, for instance, over all the projects in your group, what the status is, who's working on what corresponds to the same milestone. So it will be extremely nice to coordinate multiple projects. And then, of course, we're going to add multiple boards. So in a single project, having the ability to create multiple workflows, so that, for instance, if you have a support team that works on the same issue tracker, they can have their own workflow, while the development team uses their own workflow. Now, and to keep track of all of this whole ID all the way to production cycle, if you want to get an insight of how it works and how you're performing, we're working on cycle analytics, which we're going to ship the first version in the next version of GitLab 8.12. And cycle analytics will allow you to see for each stage in the whole cycle, how much time did it take you and how are you improving? So you can see, for instance, that your tests are taking a very long time, or for instance, that issues are staying in the backlog for a very long time before they start working on. And lastly, we are still working on improving the merge conflict resolution. Because as I showed you right now you have the option to simply choose either our changes or the changes of the other. But in the future, what we want to allow you to do is to edit this and to manually make the change that you want in the conflict. So that it's not either our or their, but you can combine the two easily, like you would maybe do in a text editor. And with that, I'm handing it back to Amara. Amara, are there any questions?
Thanks, Job. So we did receive some questions during the presentation. I'm just going to go ahead and take them in the order that they were received in. So the first question was, can issues have multiple labels?
Yeah, this is a great question. An issue can have as many labels as you want. And I actually mentioned this, is that if you have two lists, let's say I have backend and frontend, and my issue has both of those labels, it will simply appear in both lists. And we did that on purpose so that, for one, if you create this list, we don't distort what is currently there. And secondly, sometimes it happens that a thing is being worked on by multiple parties. This will resolve itself the moment you drag it into another list. So if you drag that issue into one of the other lists, it will remove both of those labels.
The next question is from Sebastian. The question is, can I choose between options during the merge conflict resolution? Can I only choose between those options during the merge request conflict resolution, or is it possible to write my own code?
So right now, you only have the option to choose between the two. But as I said, we totally understand that there are many situations, more complex situations, where you would want to edit them. So we're adding this in a future iteration.
The next question is regarding cycle analytics. So you spoke about this a bit, Job, but the question is asking for more specifics around the type of analytics that we will be tracking and whether or not we have any plans to add story points to issues.
That's a great question. So to start off with the first part, what will we actually be tracking? In cycle analytics, we look at every single step that we've defined in the ID to production. So we look at, for instance, how long does it take you to go from an issue to an actual implementation or a working merge request? How long does it take you to go from a merge request to something that is merged? And for each of these points, we'll be looking at the time that it took. And the way that we do this is we go back from production. So we start at production, we look at, well, what have you shipped? And then we try to look back at how long each stage that led up to production has taken. And we do that over all the issues you have in a certain time period. And that gives you a good idea of whether a particular part of your process funnels down too much or is too slow and you need to optimize it. For the second part of the question about story points, this is a feature we have right now in GitLab Enterprise Edition. So you can add weights to your issues. They are currently not visible yet on the issue board, but we are planning on adding this.
The next question is there any way to handle subtasks?
Yeah, so if you have an issue, you can create a task list there. And right now, if you look at the list of issues, you already see representation there. We're also planning to add this representation of task lists and issues in the issue board in the near future.
The next question comes from Fred, who asked, is there any plan for a three-way merge?
That's a very interesting question. I think in Git itself lends it very well to just merge one thing into the other. Three-way merges are complex for multiple reasons, and I don't see a good use case that wouldn't allow you to first do one merge and then do a second merge. And that is the way I would suggest to do. But I would love to hear the exact use case for doing three-way merges.
So the next question here for Job is, can issues have enforced workflows?
Thanks, Mitchell. Issues cannot have enforced workflows. So the workflows that you create in issue boards, they are driven by your own users. So you will have to tell them to follow it yourself. We thought about having something like enforced workflows, but we're worried that it overcomplicates GitLab and it makes it harder to use rather than easy to use. We're also worried about the flexibility of the issues and reducing the flexibility. So you cannot enforce workflows, but the issue boards are a very good way to encourage people to use a particular workflow.
Okay, we seem to be having some technical difficulties now. So I think this will be the end of the webcast. And with all of these questions that we didn't get to, we will go ahead and do a write-up and include that in the follow-up email that we send out to everyone. So thank you so much for attending, and we hope that you enjoyed your time. And we hope to see you at the next webcast. Thanks.